Hi folks, this is All the Fruit. I'm on the island of Gran Canaria in one of the most remote places I've ever been. I must say in one of the most remote cultivated places I've ever been on the Canary Islands. This is in the southwest of the island, in the giant valley system of Tejeda and La Aldea. La Aldea is down at the sea, Tejeda is almost 1,000 meters up in the mountains, and between them there are miles and miles of canyons with dozens of big side canyons and hundreds of tiny little side canyons. There are 2 roads in this whole valley system and a couple dirt roads, but nothing around here. And here I did a video a little bit further down in the valley of a grove of the native canary date palms. Down there I said, I doubt there is enough soil here for a permanent farm and for some decent scale agriculture. Now I had to correct my opinion from half an hour ago. It seems that apart from the cave dwellings of the goat herders in this valley, there is actually a little farm up there, which was probably abandoned, but now it was taken over by some hermit. And since traces of those abandoned farms, usually on bad soil, but in more modern times even on top quality agricultural land, are quite common throughout Europe and even in the most remote areas of the world, I want to document this one, because as you can imagine, neither fruit trees nor rubble walls last forever. So let's see what we have here. So we have a homestead in the mountains, in a surrounding more typical of the American Southwest than of the European Union, but we're actually in Africa here on the island of Gran Canaria, in the dry southwest of the island. As you can see, in any direction there is nothing, no signs of civilization. So I guess originally people would have had to hike up here for like half a day to arrive at this homestead. Nowadays, actually there is a road behind those hills, so you can get here in about an hour or an hour and a half of hiking, so it's not that remote. But back then, this was in the middle of nowhere, and I guess the people who lived here liked it. It was more difficult to tax them and to get them to do government work and serve in the military. So what kind of agriculture did they have here? As you can see, the mountains are barren. I guess that in Spanish times they did degrade the mountains to a certain extent. Maybe there was a bit more forest before that, but I don't think that they did any logging here. It's almost impossible to get the wood away from here. I guess that maybe most of the degradation and erosion happened through goat pasture. Well, so I think this homestead was mostly goat-based. Goats were the backbone of the homestead, but there seems to have been enough land here and also enough water. I mean, this is an oasis with lots of palm trees, so there must have been enough water for a small-scale agriculture. What did they do? Well, as I said, probably the backbone was goat herding. The second most important stuff were the almonds. In the upper part of the valley, in the area of Tejeda, there are millions and millions of those almond trees. Well, this year most of them burned down. And when the sweet almonds burn down, feral, bitter almonds come up. I will try to show you some of the tiny bitter almond trees later. It was very dry here in the last year, so most of the almond trees are dead or dying. Also they are quite old, I guess this is also a reason, but most of them are dead or dying, mostly because of the drought in the last years. So they were probably the most important, nut tree here in the area. The palm trees provided, of course, a lot of building material, and also they were milked for their sap, which was used to make honey and wine. Maybe they had a couple beehives around here, but no trace of them. Well, the hermit who has taken over this place planted a grapevine over there. I guess there must have been grapevines here before for some higher quality wine. What else did he plant? rosemary, quite traditional. Lemongrass, not so traditional. A couple avocados, yes, they are kind of traditional for this area. He planted a guava and a fig tree. Actually, I'm surprised I didn't find old guavas or fig trees here. That means the homestead must have been abandoned for a long time, because guavas and fig trees actually survive for quite some long time in those conditions. But no, not even a single one. Maybe there are some further up. As you can see, almost all the cultivated trees in earlier times here were almonds. All those cacti here, Opuntia ficus indica, are newly introduced. I'm sure they had Opuntia here before for the fruit. Also the pads, the green pads, were used as a vegetable to a small extent here, but here they were also used to feed the goats in times of drought. Also they were used to house cochineal lice, and also they were used to mark the boundaries of your property and of your fields against trespassers and against goats. A little bit of corn here, which looks quite different from the corn we are used to. Those must be some really ancient varieties. Branched corn here. Or maybe this is even sorghum, or no, it looks like corn. It looks like some ancient corn varieties. This pelargonium could have survived from the earlier farm. Pelargoniums can survive in semi-desert conditions for many decades without cultivation. Here is a young mango tree. Well, a couple pipes. This is the modern irrigation system. Down there is some remnant of an older irrigation system. Somehow they must have brought even cement and limestone mortar on the back of their donkeys up here, because there is a small water catchment which is isolated with cement. And because there is an old farmhouse up there, which is white, so they must have brought at least a couple bags of limestone mortar, of lime mortar. The new house this hermit built, it was built completely without mortar. So what else did they have here in this homestead? What other fruit trees were important to them? As I said, I'm really surprised I didn't see even in a single old guava or old fig tree. Maybe there are some hidden further up. I see almond trees here, dozens and dozens of meters up there, up to below those cliffs. So it's possible that there are some guavas and fig trees hidden there. Maybe even some white sapote. It also survives quite long after cultivation is abandoned. There is a small number of ancient olive trees, or rather olive shrubs. I don't know how old they are. I've never seen, in the Canary Islands, I've never seen olive trees as old as in the Mediterranean. But olives were introduced here 500-600 years ago in the Mediterranean. They have been for thousands of years. Escorbon, a very important native shrub, which was pruned to get fodder for the goats. So basically hay for storage as food for the animals was quite unusual. Here they used this escorbon shrub, which is a fabaceae, meaning that it must be very nitrogen rich. What else do we have here? Let's look around. Here next to the homestead, well, it seems like he has planted a banana and another avocado tree. To the left of the old farmhouse, there is a clump of giant reed or Spanish reed. This was introduced here. Basically, the Mediterranean cultures, and especially the Spanish, used it like the Asians used bamboo. It can get up to 7 meters high. It's pretty tough and can be used like bamboo. There are also a couple agave plants down here. I think they were used for their sugar content. I'm still not sure how they use them here in the Canary Islands. Also a couple older Opuntia plants, which I described a little bit earlier. There is not much else here, but the almond trees are, yes, of course, Sorry, last but not least, there is this giant ancient carob tree. I already made 2 dedicated videos about giant ancient carob trees in the Tenerife mountains. Here is another one in the Gran Canaria mountains. A big carob shrub which actually broke apart. Really beautiful. Must be really ancient. Well, I will not walk up there. I think you can see that it has those special nuts or nodules everywhere on the branches, which are so typical for Canary Island carobs. Here the fruit are lying on the ground. Those fruit were used for sugar. You can make a cocoa substitute out of them. They were used to feed animals. And nowadays, actually the seeds are more important because then you can congeal every type of food. As I said, I expect probably some old fig tree and some old guava tree surviving somewhere. Maybe a couple other things. I wanted to show you some of the feral bitter almonds which spring up in areas with sweet almond cultivation, but right now I cannot see a single one. Just have to believe me that the upper areas of the Tejeda Valley, there used to be millions of cultivated sweet almonds. Now there are probably tens or even hundreds of millions of feral bitter almonds. Yeah, so folks, this was a short overview of a farm in the middle of nowhere, miles and miles away from everything in the semi-desert mountains of southwestern Gran Canaria. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful island of Gran Canaria. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.